Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today I'm talking about Subnautica 3. What's up with that potential sequel? Alright, very quick context first. I've been a fan of the Subnautica series since its original alpha state, just back in 2014. I found the game in its early development and really enjoyed the concept. Since then, I've followed most every update with each and every new biome that they added in what was at the time a pretty empty world. Eventually enjoying the game in its full release a bunch of times, and of course the follow-up game Below Zero. So I've actually made piles of videos about these games, multiple full playthroughs, and now Josh and Cotton are actually finally trying the game actively on the channel right now. The pair of them have almost completed the original Subnautica now, with plans to check out Below Zero. It's been very fun to watch and see the community enjoy their reactions to it, and with how much they're enjoying it, Josh has been asking me what's going on with the next game, what do we know about it, and so on. And I realized, I know basically nothing about it, so I've decided to take a look. And why not share that current state of Subnautica 3 and what we know about it in a video, for the people on the channel who are currently getting into it or refreshing themselves via that series. So, Subnautica 3. Is it even called that? Well, it's what we're going to currently refer to it as, since there is not an official title or anything quite yet. What matters most is not necessarily the title of the game, but if it's actually happening. And on that front, I am happy to say that it is, and it is confirmed to be so. Back in 2022, the developers of the series, Unknown Worlds, announced that they're looking for a senior narrative designer to help shape the next game in the Subnautica universe. The job generally works with other writers and designers to develop a game's narrative, leveraging game mechanics and systems unique to the game to then tell a story within that. Essentially be the bridge and glue between the different various positions to better tell the story that they've already got planned. That's how I imagine it. That was hugely exciting because it confirms they're working on the next Subnautica game crystal clearly. The tweet was made back in April of 2022, so that's almost 20 months ago now, and we're well on our way to 2 years since that tweet. The wording was also universe, which might suggest future titles beyond 3. Well, that'd be awesome. But hilariously, right after I finished this video, something just happened. This hilarious reveal that Subnautica 3 isn't just in dev and coming, but planned for release in 2025, meaning probably full release. This was not announced in a fun or exciting way, but in a form of leak, as it were, via the Crafton report for 2023 quarter 3. These reports are something I've followed for Elden Ring and From Software. Their parent company Kadokawa do them, and that's a way for us to learn things about the games that aren't so public. The reports are basically a way for investors to remain informed about current plans, earnings, reasoning, and so on. It helps them know if they should continue investing and invest more and that kind of stuff. But for us though, it sometimes reveals plans and info not yet known, like the literal timeline for Subnautica 3's full release. They've been scaling up their games in dev, and so the results of that are starting to show in 2024 to 2026 as shown in this image. Within that, they claim the next Subnautica will release in 2025, which again I believe to be a full release. That suggests either no early access period for the game, which would be very unusual, or we should expect an early access period very soon and a shorter one than what we're used to. Let's talk about early access. When should we expect that? Well, we can look back at the previous games and consider their timelines. It is interesting to note that Subnautica came out in 2014 technically, and Below Zero following up in technically 2019. Though it's more complicated than just that, it wasn't actually until, say, the start of 2018 that Subnautica finally released in its full version, and Below Zero had its final full release in 2021. So if you're looking at their early access launches, it's an average of a 5-year gap between the two, and with 2024 that will be another 5-year gap between Subnautica 3's potential early access and Below Zero's. If that is their average dev time, we should be expecting to hear some news pretty damn soon, maybe at the end of the year. The Game Awards is coming up, I suppose, or more likely in the next year we'll hear something about it. I am of the opinion that they will do another early access event, and maybe it'll harken back towards the way they did Subnautica 1, where you had a world with not much in it, and then an update where they added new technology and new stuff and a little bit of story, and it kind of was a fun thing to follow for years at a time, before then major updates that really fleshed things out. So an early access period of 2024 into 2025 with full launch would suggest a much faster timeline than we're used to for early access. Maybe they used the success of the last games to fund more dev power into this next game. Maybe we're just seeing a better timeline in general than before. So quite exciting, but that's all I can really speculate on timelines for now. That brings us to story though. That's a big question in itself, because what is going to be the focus? Who will you play? The way storytelling was done in the original Subnautica compared to Below Zero was worlds apart. Subnautica was like finding breadcrumbs and working a lot of it out for yourself, putting it together, and also witnessing events and so on. Compared to that, Below Zero was much more clearer, on track. You know, you've got actual NPCs to speak with. Your character actually did a lot of speaking and you were following their story. So a lot of voice acted dialogue. Because of that, it felt much less like playing your own character and playing your own journey per se, but following someone else's. So there's quite a divide in the player base between which style of storytelling they prefer. So it's interesting to think about, what will Subnautica 3 do in terms of storytelling? Will they go back to one style? Will it be more like Below Zero? Or maybe a middle ground after, what they've learned? Below Zero is considered a sort of short spin-off from the series, but it's clearly in the same, world, the Subnautica universe as they call it, and there are references between the two. But because the final events of Below Zero, without spoilers, are a pretty damn big deal universally, I do think it's something we should expect to hear about, see, maybe follow in Subnautica 3. Looking at their website, under the jobs pages, we can actually see they're still hiring today, but specifically for character artists now. Someone experienced who can work remote and help create art for both characters and creatures in their games. Excitingly, in that post, they reference a preference for someone who worked on a character creator or features of that nature in games before. Maybe then, in Subnautica 3, we'll finally truly have our own character where we make one using a character creator for the first time. In that way, we'd definitely be returning with our own story, with our own uniquely made character, probably not voice acted, but following a scripted and voice acted story all the same. But that does kind of bring us to the end of everything official that's been said or shown so far for the game. But there are rumors and current discussion that we can look at, starting with the big one. What are the main changes that you want to see in Subnautica 3? And the most requested feature is obviously multiplayer. A dedicated version of the game that works and is actually balanced around it. Well, that'd be great. Modding exists, of course, for the current games, but it'd be a nice change of pace for this new game to have a focus or option for multiplayer if you've decided not to play it alone. The issue with this always crops up in a game that's never intended to actually be multiplayer. When you force it into a game, things are kind of busted in terms of balance. The extreme rates that you complete tasks in a group compared to solo, how fast you gather materials, take on challenges, and so on. Some of the hardest sections and most fun in the original game is dealing with some of the big bads on your own and trying to evade and get around them. If you have a friend to distract it while you pass through, it's a lot less intense or fun. Or lamer, you can get like the stun guns and infinitely stun enemies because there's multiple of you. So a Subnautica game designed around multiplayer, that'd be something special. It's a very popular rumor with how requested that this feature is that will be in the next game, but I still see that as entirely speculation based on hope. After that, we have another common request about Below Zero that was basically people want a longer dedicated campaign, one more comparable to the length of the original Subnautica compared to Below Zero's quite short experience. I will say, I like the change of pace, the shorter bite-sized event-driven way that Below Zero went, but I also freely admit that it's a bit more forgettable as a game because of it. The main events I sure remember and appreciate, but it was about that personal, unique moments that you had in original Subnautica that feels, way less planned out and way more memorable because of it. Another hope beyond that is that some really want less ground stuff, which I can understand. You have next to no control over your character and ground. You just walk around and you can jump a bit and maybe some basic attacks, but that's it. In Below Zero, they added some new technology for ground, like the hover bike stuff. That was cool, but maybe it's true that Below Zero went a bit too hard on the ground stuff, considering the complete lack of gameplay designed for that. Subnautica games are clearly meant to be underwater, so without some major development for above ground gameplay improvements, I'd agree with that one, but I also think there's a chance that they'll really have developed things in that way, so we'll see. I think the biggest divide, like I was saying before, is how the story's told and what you actually want to see in the next game. Personally, I preferred when it was told through the environment and the major events that you learn about or witness, rather than watching the plot of your character just unfold, like I say, very on tracks. I have read a lot of comments about wanting no dialogue in the next game, returning to that completely silent, alone environment, but all I really hope for is for them to learn from the two games and the different styles, and like I said, find a middle ground between the two. But it would be great if the actual game was much bigger again. Original Subnautica felt massive, from just the size of the area you're playing in, but also especially when you think about all the layers to the game, the caves and like the underwater river sections and so on. Imagine if Subnautica 3 was comparable to that, or even double the size of 1, with a wider variety of biomes. Below Zero was entirely focused on that cold Arctic environment, leaving things feeling very samey wherever you went, with their ability to kind of do anything since it's based on alien planets that don't really obey our normal Earth rules. You can of course create any terrifying creature you can think of with that freedom, but also the environments to explore were sometimes extremely beautiful in these games because of it. Otherworldly environments and places. Why not go crazy with that and give us every environment or biome you can think of? I would rather not see one focus on a single environment like tropical or Arctic this time, but everything at once. But yeah, what would you like to see in Subnautica 3? Do you think it'll continue the story we saw in Sub-Zero, which to be fair, like I say, was a pretty big deal, or will we go back to being more individual and personal? There's potential for that with the whole character creator thing after all. Either way, for me, more Subnautica is going to be a good thing, whatever form that takes. A new environment, a new mystery, new awesome technology to make, the vehicles and base building. I just like these games. For now though, thank you for joining me for this little look at what we do know about Subnautica 3 so far, and until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.